Pesticide Awareness Week is observed during the last week of October and forms part of Agriculture Month activities. For the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board, this is an important week, an opportunity to showcase the work of the board in its public awareness initiatives about the safe use and handling of pesticides and other dangerous chemicals, about the dangers posed by careless handling and storage of pesticides and pesticide containers. The dangers pesticides pose to life and limb could be a direct threat to your friends and loved ones. As part of Pesticide Awareness Week 2015, the Pesticide Board invited secondary schools from across the country to participate in a drama competition that sought to emphasize the dangers posed by improper handling of these dangerous chemicals. Participating schools were asked to come up with skits that dramatized this message, and over several weeks of the competition, schools were judged and were either eliminated or moved forward to the next round, until there were the final three: J.C. Chandising Secondary of Karantini East Berbice, Legwan Secondary, and Kukwani Secondary. On Tuesday, October 27, the Pesticide Board hosted the final of the competition to decide the first, second, and third place finishers. The event also saw the presentation of the awards and prizes to the winning schools and the runners-up. The Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board is now pleased to present to you the highlights of that event.
Today's activity is key to the theme for Pesticide Awareness Week this year, which is Protect Children from Pesticides. That's why we have so many of you young ones with us this morning. And today's activity is very symbolic in raising awareness as well, not only to students within schools, but to the general public. And we're hoping that each of you will also be ambassadors even as you go back to your secondary schools, your villages, your home, to continue to raise awareness about pesticides. The National Academy of Science reports that children are more susceptible to chemicals than adults, and estimates that 50% of lifetime pesticide exposure occurs during the first 5 years of life. Every year, more than 10,000 children are poisoned by rodenticides alone. Roughly 1 in 6 children in the US has one or more developmental disabilities, ranging from learning disability to serious behavioral or emotional disorders. The Pesticide Action Network report of 2014 on children and pesticides, which was titled "A Generation in Jeopardy," ideally sums it up and highlights the purpose of today's activity. The Pesticide Action Network also calls it the silent epidemic. The silent epidemic that is currently ongoing in our society today. Today's activity is aimed to ensure that we educate, that everybody is informed and knowledgeable about pesticides and are in a position to better protect their health and the environment. I want to welcome you once again, and at this point in time, I want to invite Dr. Leslie Monroe, who is the chairman of the Pesticide and Toxic Chemical Control Board, to give you a brief overview of the actual program itself and the awareness in terms of the board's awareness to secondary schools. Let's give him a hand as he comes. Dr. Monroe.
A very good morning to you all this morning, especially the children who've come from those various regions to attend this morning's activity. Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, the directors of the Pesticide and Toxic Chemicals Control Board, judges, Ms. Lloyda Garrett, Dr. Dindel Pamal, registrar, staff of the Pesticide and Toxic Chemicals Control Board, heads of sister agencies, and from other associated agencies. I see Dr. Paris here. Welcome. I have a simple task of just giving you an overview of the pesticide awareness program with regards to schools. Actually, the board is taking its responsibility very seriously with regards to pesticide use within the country. You may not know, but the board has responsibility for the management of pesticides from the time they enter the country until they are disposed of in a safe manner. And over the past couple of years, the board has been focusing the awareness program primarily on farmers, because farmers use pesticides in their everyday activities for the production of safe, wholesome food. So the board staff have been around the country making farmers aware of the proper use of pesticides. But the shift now is going to be with regards to pesticides in schools. You heard the registrar with a very bleak review of pesticides and its effect on children. So the board now is going to focus more on the pesticide as it relates to effects on children. The pesticide awareness program in schools actually began in 2009. I think it started at St. Stanislaus School. And it focused primarily on having a pesticide corner within the school. And that's how it went on for years, having a little corner where the board would have provided the school with material to exhibit and for students to have a look at. And that's how the competition also started, with a pesticide awareness corner. And the judging would have been based on how this corner was done. I think over the years, over the 7 years, well, this is the 7th year, I think a total of 34 schools have participated in this program, ranging from schools from regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10. Regions 7 and 8 have not yet been touched. But the idea is to touch all schools throughout the next 4 to 5 years, apparently, but it's to get in touch with everybody. And this year, we have moved now to 9 schools. 9 schools are involved in this program. And instead of having the pesticide awareness corner, it is moved on to having a dramatic presentation by schools. And this is what we're here for this morning. During the past couple of weeks, staff from within the board and outside, we had a director, or 2 directors, Mr. Sharma, Dr. Kerry, and staff within the board, went around the country to the 9 schools that participated in the program and did the judging, the preliminary judging. It is out of that exercise that 3 schools have been identified to present their programs this morning. But we still recognize all the schools that have participated in the exercise. So much so that, yes, round of applause for everybody. The feedback I got is that everything was done, it was a very high standard, and so I want to commend you for that. Bearing in mind that the time you got was not overly long, it was a very short period, and it would appear that people did a fantastic job in their skits. And with this program, everybody wins. Nobody leaves without something. The board has, well, the top 3 would get prizes of $150,000, I think, is the first prize. $100,000 for the second prize, and $75,000 for the third one. But everybody leaves with $20,000 worth of books, agricultural books. So everybody benefits. Another benefit too is that everybody is wiser now with regards to pesticide use. And that is the main focus of this activity, to make you aware of pesticides and the utility and also the dangers involved in pesticides. So everybody would have gained from this exposure. And I was advised that the skits were done for the entire school. I think they had assemblies, and everybody actually was involved in this activity. So that's another plus. So I want to shut up now and so we get on with the program, and hope that everybody has a very enjoyable morning. And my hope is that everybody enjoys it and every child gets back safely to his home school. So with that, sit back and enjoy the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the next speaker who is going to bring the feature address this morning. We're going to have a small change to our program, and that is the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. George Jarvis. Give him a warm welcome as he comes. The Ministry of Agriculture has always stood in support of the board's public awareness activities and continue to support the work of the board in every area and every region across Guyana. It is a pleasure this morning to have him here to deliver the feature address and to further support this activity. Mr. Jarvis.
Thank you very much, Tricia. Colleagues at the head table, colleagues at the Pesticide Board, students, teachers, special invitees, I wear a size 10, and I've been asked to fill the shoes of a guy who wears probably size 14. So you know I'm starting off at a disadvantage. But I'm going to give it a good try. And I trust that together we'll be able to have some understanding of what we're about here. The theme, protecting children from pesticides, resonates with me personally, and those of you who would have seen our program Sunday night would have noticed the passion of the panelists that spoke on NTN with regards to this topic.
Do you have your cell phone with you?
Possibly. Now, most of what we do, most of the changes that we expect will come from the young folks who are the first persons to be exposed. And children, I expect that you will help to educate your parents in the safe use of pesticides. And whilst most of us will think that the pesticides being spoken about are the ones that are used on farms, we are also referring to those household ones, which are the ones that you're most likely to become in contact with. But I'll get back to that. The Ministry of Agriculture, along with the rest of the Caribbean, which forms part of the controlling group of Pesticide Control Board, is observing Pesticide Awareness Week from the 25th to the 31st of October 2015. The observance, which will be held under the theme, Protect Children from Pesticides, aims at reducing children's exposure to pesticides. The widespread use of pesticides in agriculture and food, homes, school gardens, and public places exposes millions of children and adults worldwide to the harmful effects of toxic chemicals. Children are particularly vulnerable. This is so for several reasons. They face far greater risks of exposure than adults. When compared to adults, children breathe more air, eat more food, and drink more water per unit of body weight, which leads to greater exposure in a pesticide-contaminated environment. Early life exposure can damage their still developing brain and nervous and other systems, and disrupt mental and psychological growth, leading to a range of diseases and disorders. These include birth defects, cognitive and behavioral problems affecting intelligence, learning ability, and social interactions, disruption of hormonal, reproductive, and immune systems, cancers, and metabolic disorders such as obesity and diabetes. Children inhale pesticide vapors and pesticide-laden dust, and also touch and play around with things which carry pesticide residues. Children in rural areas, particularly children of agricultural workers, fare worse. Pesticide residues in the fields where the children play, and those carried home by parents on their bodies and clothes, or pesticides stored at home are other sources of exposure. Millions of children are also engaged in farm work, often handling hazardous pesticides. Farming as well as non-farming communities living near farms are exposed to pesticide spray drifts. A Pesticide Action Network report states that children today are sicker than they were a generation ago. There is urgent need, therefore, to protect children from toxic pesticides so they can live healthy lives to their full physical and intellectual potential. Many pesticide regulatory policies, standards, and practices around the world do not reflect this crucial need. Regulatory standards, which are lax in many parts of the world, are still targeted at adults. This needs to change.